Looking at pictures on Shabbos. May one on Shabbos look at a wedding album, look at pictures of his family, of himself, pictures of tzaddikim, books that contain pictures, illustrations, diagrams. And if the answer is yes, is it permitted to read the captions that either are on top or under or on the side of the picture which describe the picture? So a person may wonder and ask, why is this even a question? We do not find that one of the 39 malachis in the Mishkan contains thou shalt not read, or thou shalt not look at a picture and the like. So under what notion would one be able to prohibit reading or looking at pictures? So while in truth this questioner is correct that there is no lametes malacha which prohibits reading things on Shabbos, nonetheless, as we know, the Chachamim enacted various takanas institutions which added different regulations and prohibitions which are not biblically applicable. One of these regulations, unfortunately, is not well known to the masses, is a regulation against reading. Yes, just like you can't speak anything you want on Shabbos, and just like you can't touch anything you want on Shabbos, and just like you can't walk the way you, in a regular way of walking on Shabbos, rabbinically, so too you can't read everything you want to read on Shabbos as is done during the week. Why do the sages regulate one's reading on Shabbos? So the reason is, as brought in Paiskim, is due to shtare hedyetis. This means that since it's rabbinically prohibited to read business documents and do business on Shabbos, lest one come to write, which is a biblical prohibition, therefore they included and prohibited all reading on Shabbos unless it falls under one of the permitted cases. And this is exactly the purpose of our discussion. Does looking at pictures and reading the captions under or over the picture that describe the picture, is it included in the prohibited regulation against reading on Shabbos, and therefore may not be done? Or does it fall under one of the permitted cases and therefore is permitted to be done? So let's start off first with looking at pictures. The Gemara in Shabbos 149a seems to conclude that it's prohibited to look at pictures not just on Shabbos, but even during the week, due to a prohibition of idolatry. Practically, however, the Rishonim, Tosfos, the Rosh record, and so is recorded in Shulchanaruchharav chapter 141, 142, Halacha 15, the Mechaber, and Shacham 42:33, that this is referring to pictures of idolatry, things that have been made or illustrated for purposes of idolatry, while pictures for the sake of pleasure is permitted to look at. Meaning pictures and illustrations that were done for the sake of beauty is permitted for one to look at during the week. Based on this, the Alter Rebbe rules in the Shulchan Aruch chapter 301 halacha in Kuntras Achron 2 that there's no reason to prohibit this on Shabbos. In other words, since we conclude, like the Rishonim and Paiskim who rule, that it is permitted to look at pictures that were done for the sake of pleasure, beauty, and not for idolatry, there is no reason to prohibit it on Shabbos. In other words, looking at pictures is not similar to the prohibition and regulation of reading that the Chachamim made. Their regulation refers to reading words, not to looking at a picture. And so conclude other Paiskim, the Pri Megadim, the Chemin Moshe, Maimon Mordechai, and other Achreinim. However, it's interesting to note that you have some contemporary authorities who learn that looking at pictures is prohibited on Shabbos due to the reading prohibition. Just like you can't read things on Shabbos unless it falls under one of the exceptions that we will explain, so too you can't look at pictures, so ruled the Chazon Ish, as recorded in Orchos Rabbeinu 3, page 238. Nonetheless, this is not the consensus of the opinions, and as we said, we rule that it's mutter to look at pictures on Shabbos. Obviously, it's not proper to spend all one's time on Shabbos looking at pictures. Shabbos is meant for Torah learning, as recorded in chapter 290. Halacha 5, L'nisna Shabbos Liso Elul Lasik b'divrei Torah. But nonetheless, there is no individual prohibition involved in looking at a picture or going through a picture album. Now let's discuss reading the descriptions under the pictures. Many pictures contain a description describing who the people are in them, a certain episode associated with it. May one read those captions? And the answer is, it's a clear ruling in Shulchan Aruch chapter 307, halacha 2 in the Alter Rebbe, halacha 29 in the Alter Rebbe, brought in the Mechaber 307 Halacha 15, based on the Gemara in Shabbos 149a, that included in the regulation and rabbinical prohibition against reading on Shabbos is against reading the captions that are found under a picture and describe the people or events associated with it. In the words of the Shulchan Aruch, a wall or curtain which contains designs of different animals or sketches of people portraying historical events, such as the Battle of David and Goliath, and it's written under it, this is the figure of this animal, this is the portrait of this person. It is forbidden to read this writing on Shabbos due to a decree that one may come to read layman documents, end quote. Continues the Alter Rebbe and writes a number of additions to this prohibition and regulation, that it applies even if one will not be verbalizing the words but simply reading the captions in his mind. So also rules Rabbeinu Yoina and other Achreidim. Furthermore, writes the Alter Rebbe in the Kuntras Achron there in 301-2, that this prohibition applies even if one receives einig, pleasure from reading it, as we do not permit Shabbos prohibitions even if it's rabbinical for the sake of fulfilling the mitzvah of einig Shabbos. So even someone who gets great einig and tainig from looking at the pictures and reading the captions, there is no allowance for him to do so. To read. To look, he may, as we explained, to look at the pictures. As rules the Alter Rebbe, so also rules most of the Achreinim, the El Yerabah, the Chemin Meisha, the Maimon Mordechai, the Menei HaTorah, the Halacha-Looking, the Kaf HaChaim, the Mishnah Berurah, Sharatzion, and others. There is one lone opinion who held that if you look at it for the sake of pleasure and you're reading the caption for the sake of giving you pleasure, einig, then you may do so. So is one possible way of understanding the Magen Avram in 301-4, and so understands the Pri Megadim there, although as we said, consensus of Poskim is not like this opinion. Based on what we read, this prohibition applies even regarding matters in Tanakh, such as the Battle of David and Goliath or Akedas Yitzchak. You're now allowed to read the captions under such illustrations or pictures on Shabbos. It applies whether the words are written or the words are engraved. The words may not be read. So what are the cases of exception that in general apply towards reading on Shabbos and would apply as well towards reading the captions under a picture? So number one, if one is reading for the sake of a mitzvah or for the sake of learning Torah, such as pictures found in Torah books for the sake of illustrating our halacha or sugya. Many times in a Chumash, Gemara, Mishnah, Shulchanaruch, you have pictures depicting the halacha, and under it there are captions of explanation. It is permitted to read that on Shabbos, being it's for the sake of learning Torah, the sake of a mitzvah, which the Chachamim never regulated against the doing. Likewise, if it's a matter that pertains to the public, such as a safety sign, it is permitted to read on Shabbos. If it's a matter that pertains to one's personal health, it may be read on Shabbos in one's mind. And if the caption is engraved in a wall, such as you have a picture or illustration on a pillar, and under it you have an engraved writing of a caption, it's permitted to be read on Shabbos. Based on this, we can understand. Halacha l'maisa, to summarize. While it's permitted to look at pictures on Shabbos, it's prohibited to read the captions under them, unless it is involving a mitzvah or Torah, learning Torah purpose. And therefore it's obvious that sports cards and the like may not be looked at in terms of reading what's written on them on Shabbos. Regarding pictures of tzaddikim, if you can read captions that are under the pictures, some write it's permitted, as this brings one closer to fear of heaven, is included in the allowance to read for the sake of a mitzvah or for the sake of learning Torah.
Thank you for listening to Shulchanaruchharav.com. Our free services of making Torah knowledge available to the public depends on donors like you. Please help us continue our work through making even a small contribution at Shulchanaruchharav.com under the Daily Halacha Dedication section or in the subscription page. Also, check out our online courses and many sefarim available for purchase that will both enhance your Torah knowledge and help support our work.